rodiny. Chceme a budem, přišli jsme a půjdem. Chceme se domů navrátit. Chceme a budem, přišli jsme a půjdem. Chceme se domů navrátit.
After many years, Ella, Helga, and Anna are reunited in Prague. In spite of having known her for only a short while during their childhood, these women owe much of their joy of living to the heroine of our story.
Of our room, of 28, of room 28.
This is a story full of questions. Questions like who won, good or evil? What does one do when confronting true evil? What can one really give to others? What does he leave for posterity? This is a story about a very special woman who died 50 years ago, but nevertheless is still alive. Friedel Dicker Brandeis.
If it is somebody who can work with children in a condition before gas, and then he can explain them still what is the difference between cold and a warm color, this somebody is immortal for me.
Lena Makarova never met Friedel, yet every single aspect of her life is stamped by Friedel's influence. She learned about Friedel from a book of drawings, and from that moment on, she dedicated her entire life to get to know and understand Friedel and her work. Edith Kramer did know Friedel. As a young girl, Edith studied painting with Friedel. It was a sort of old-fashioned master-pupil relationship. Friedel would probably be proud of Edith, who is still carrying on in her footsteps. She is both a painter and a prominent figure in the field of children's art therapy. In the late 30s, Edith fled Europe, and since then, she has lived in New York.
Friedel was a very strong personality. Tiny, she's smaller than I, and full of energy.
Hilda was Friedel's best friend. In those bad times, it would have been better for Hilda, who was not Jewish, to keep away from Friedel. But the bigger the danger, the closer she drew to her.
Wir waren solche Freunde. Ich sag, das gibt's jetzt nicht mehr, solche Freundschaften. Die gibt's nicht mehr.
In Terezin, a small town about an hour's drive from Prague, a children's opera is being performed. This is a revival of Brundabar, an opera which was performed here during the Nazi occupation, in the same hall, by the children imprisoned in the concentration camp of Terezin.
Ja se jmenuju
Wunderbar is the name of the evil protagonist against whom the children unite and succeed in defeating. It is a simple story about the struggle between good and evil. Friedel is sent to Terezin in December 1942. The Czech citizens have been evacuated by the Nazis, who turned the entire town into a ghetto for Jews. As part of the Nazi propaganda, these Jews are allowed to carry on what appears to be an autonomous life. No one has told them that Terezin was only a facade, and in fact a transit point, one before the final station. Friedel lives here from 1942 to 1944, dedicating herself totally to her work with the children. Under the absurd conditions in the ghetto, she and the children create artwork of superb quality. Friedel tries to protect their childhood through art.
Well, I think always we felt, when her lessons were, we felt very happy and free, and we forgot where we were.
We could express free, and it was very important.
Because we couldn't express anything else.
Our feeling was that in this lesson we are free.
Friedel is born in Vienna in 1898. It is a time of high hopes at the prospects of a new century.
We were all very assimilated. She was from a Jewish father, and I guess a Jewish mother. I think her mother died when she was very young. Yeah.
At 17, Friedel begins studying art and weaving at the School of Applied Arts in Vienna. Despite the great expectations that were prevailing at the beginning of the century, a terrible war is now raging outside. The First World War. In 1919, Friedel leaves Vienna for Weimar in order to study at a new art school which has just opened, the Bauhaus. Friedel is taken by the utopian ideas of the Bauhaus, which call for the integration of art and modern technology. The people of the Bauhaus believe that the influence of art will limit the dangers of technology, and so create a better world. Friedel is mainly influenced by the charismatic teacher Johannes Itten, a man who believes that the world is driven by contrasts. Good and evil, black and white. Life is an ongoing struggle for the victory of good.
In Theresienstadt, that was no time for dialectic. That was again time, unfortunately, for Ethan, for black and white. She again came back to these extremes and definitions. What is allowed to do for human being? What is forbidden? What is good? What is bad? What is real things? What is reflection?
In Terezin, Friedel lives in L410, the girls' barracks. With the few painting utensils she has somehow managed to get, she comes to the children's rooms. Here, for an hour and a half, she takes the children to a faraway place, a place in their imagination. Room 28, where Ella, Helga, and Anna used to live, was one of Friedel's favorite rooms.
We are allowed.
Here were the beds, there were beds.
In those days, who would imagine that someday a young Czech family would come back and live a normal life here?
We called her Friedel, Mrs. Friedel.
Mrs. Friedel.
She came to our room. She came along with a lot of paper and brushes and paints. And then she organized us in groups because we didn't have room and all around the table.
לבן שחור יכול להיות מאוד מאוד צבעוני. כששמעתי את זה ממנה פעם ראשונה, אז חשבתי, לבן שחור יכול להיות צבעוני, זה לא הסתדר לי. אני חושבת שבזה היא צדקה.
All the color scales and the color mixtures that they did. I mean, there were quite a few things that were done that really helped them get a vocabulary with which to then create, acquire the skills, the vocabulary of color and of form and so on. And the freeing, she did quite a lot of those rhythmic exercises, all of them freeing their hand so they could use their hand to really draw instead of use their hand as you do for writing.
It's all from Bauhaus. Her knowledge that she received there was very useful in Theresienstadt. It's like she came back to the circle, but as a new person. Not like the Friedel who was a student of Eton.
Her talent, her particular talent, was of course recognized. The whole group, they were all rather talented one way or another. They were all very much influenced by their teacher. In fact, some people say they were too much influenced by the teacher. But I think that, that Friedel, probably more than anyone else, sort of developed further, emancipated from that. And of course, if you look at her work, you have to think in terms of 2 generations back, in order to see how advanced she was in her work.
the age of 25, Friedel leaves the Bauhaus and returns to Vienna. She dreams of promoting the revolutionary style of Bauhaus and redesigning the world. Together with Franz Singer, a colleague and an intimate friend, she opens a studio for design and architecture.
The room is the same. This is from Singer, all from Singer.
Professor Werner and his wife live today in the former studio of Friedel and Singer. They have maintained the original colors and the design of the studio.
We didn't change anything.
In Vienna, they had Franz Singer and Friedel Dicker were insofar special because they were among the few who left Vienna and went to the Bauhaus and came back with the new ideas.
In their studio, Friedel and Singer design everything from furniture to cloth, shops, offices, apartments, even children's toys and ladies' handbags. One of their last projects is the design of a modern kindergarten built in one of Vienna's proletarian suburbs. The painter Georg Eisler, whose mother was a close friend of Friedel, visited this kindergarten.
Ah, myself, not my paintings, my photos of me doing something I have never done since, wash dishes.
I think they had very strong common artistic life with Singer. And also I think they were very close together. And so it was very productive time for Friedel in Vienna.
In 1931, Friedel is 33 years old. She wants a child, but Singer refuses. Maybe because he's already married to a famous opera singer and has a son with her. Friedel decides to leave him. Aside from her work as a designer, she now starts giving painting lessons to a young girl.
I started working with Friedel when I was still about maybe 14 or 15. She was very passionate and very temperamental, and if she felt you had done some fake or you had been what she called reportage, you know, she says, I know you can see, you can draw an eye, it will look like an eye. That you're gifted, I know, you don't have to tell me that. What you're going to do with it, that's what's important, with the gift. She would give these dictations where the sound of her voice would have to be translated into a graphic image, like 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and it would have a certain rhythm, and you would be very careful to really follow her voice to get this. Or she would say donner, something like this, and in each case you would have to be very attentive at her signals and translate them immediately into a graphic image. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And you would draw
exactly in the rhythm in which she gave it, and then you could read it off. You could read exactly what it was. Very different from if she would say something, Donner, you know, that would go off. But in each case, you would expect to make a gesture using your charcoal, following the command. 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. It could be a shell, it could be anything, but it grows in a rhythmic manner. And then if you really look at the real shell, you understand that shell. Think of the essence. I mean, not what a thing looks like, but what a thing is for. Now, she was very different with children, you see. Child you have to praise. Stimulate them to really get enthusiastic. But you cannot tell a child any of the things I'm telling you. That's not a child's way of perceiving the world. And one has to leave children to their own way of seeing their own developmental stage and what's possible at this stage, and not push. Just give maybe every once in a while a suggestion, because you can't teach a child anything but what he or she already knows, but doesn't quite yet know. It might have to be spelled out. See, there is more space back there. Oh yes, there is more space back there.
When time became more and more tough, she felt that she should forget about a meaning of art, this universal meaning of lines and forms, and go to some social activity in order to protect people from Nazi division. And the moment when she tried it, she was arrested.
In February 1934, Friedel is arrested in Vienna and accused of communist activity. After being interrogated, she is freed from jail and decides to emigrate to Prague. Prague is a gathering place for political refugees from all over Europe. Edith Kramer, who wishes to continue her studies with Friedel, follows her to Prague.
And then she went into analysis in Prague because she noticed when she was in prison that she was very happy and elated. And she felt, now this is really something not right, that she would be happy in prison, although there were other things, and the interrogation must have been very painful.
What happened with her in Theresienstadt, it is her total freedom that she got in a prison camp. It looks absolutely furious, I don't know. It's like, you know, I say that in order to improve creativity, you have to be in a concentration camp. It is very bad conclusions that can come from this. But in Friedel's life, in a way, it worked.
A tadyhle byly takový kozy udělaný a na to prkna, když se dělala ta výstava dětí a tady byly ty obrázky.
Paradoxical as it may sound, in Terezin, Friedel achieved her self-fulfillment. Her inner struggles cease, and her entire strength is devoted to her work with the children.
Právě proto, že jsem měla tu první cenu, tak si to tak pamatuju. To bylo celý až takhle dolů a zpátky. To bylo ono. Já zase mám na ní takovou vzpomínku, že když jsem k ní přišla poprvé, tak říkala, co by jsem chtěla kreslit. Já jsem jí říkala, já nevím, já nic asi neumím. A jako ta naše paní učitelka, že my jsme ji měli za paní učitelku, tak říkala, nadělej tu nějakých pár čar. Já jsem je načmárala na ten papír a ona mi říká, co z toho vidíš, co bys tam tak chtěla z toho vytvořit. Já jsem jí řekla, já v tom nevidím nic. Nějaký čáry. Ona říká, tak ten papír musíme trošku pootočit a něco budeš vidět. Tak já jsem ho otočila, teda respektive ona, a já říkám, já tam nic nevidím, no tak ho ještě trošku otočíme. Tak jsme tak točili, až najednou mně přišlo, že by z toho šlo udělat kruh tanečnic, který jsem musela sama s mýma očima, jak to vidím, nakreslit. A ona říká, to by byl dobrý nápad a je to hezký, docela se tě to povedlo, no budeš mít talent.
I think in Terezin you could help them in part by reviving the good experiences of the past, since there was no future. In that sense, almost more as you do with old people. Your riches are in your past, in what you have been and what you still are and what you carry with yourself.
נספר לך משהו, תצייני מה שבא לך. אז בואי, נספר על תמי, שהייתה אצל החברות שלה, ושכחה בעצם להסתכל על השעון. פתאום היא מסתכלת ורואה שכבר מאוד מאוחר. היא השתמשה בטכניקות של לספר סיפורים. השיבה אותנו בחדר עם דף נייר ועיפרון, והתחילה לספר סיפור. וכל אחד מאיתנו ציירה את התמונה בהתאם לתפיסתה. לא פעם היא השתמשה במקצב, בקולות. תציירו. אז ציירנו. כף, או חזק, חלש. פשוט תשתמשו באמצעים שלכם, איך אתם יכולים לבטא מה שאתם שומעים. זה אבא של תמי שבא לקראתה ובא לחפש אותה. זה הסיפור. היה כיף לצייר? כן.
When the light went off and the candle it was so quiet in the room. So each of us was like in a, dream, and I think that we started to be like sad because we were waiting what will happen next day. Maybe there will be a transport, and when there was a transport and some children from our room had to go, it took a nice couple days to recover from the sadness.
Quite a lot.
And this happened quite a lot.
Ich habe die Friedel in Prag kennengelernt, nicht? Wir haben gemeinsam das Archiv bearbeitet für die Partei. Friedel hat einen Kindergarten, einen Zeichenkindergarten gehabt, wo die Kinder große Backpapiere bekommen haben, und da haben sie drauf gezeichnet und gemalt. Und am Abend haben wir dann diese Zeichnungen begutachtet. Und da hat sie uns auch immer die ganzen Geschichten von den Kindern erzählt, nicht wahr? Das waren immer sehr lustige Sachen. So das mit dem kleinen Mädel, das mit dem Kinderfräulein spazieren geht in Prag und fragt, da war eine Kirche. Und da hat sie erzählt, das ist eine Kirche. Da hat das Kind gefragt, ja, was ist eine Kirche? Da hat das Kindermädchen erklärt, ja, da wohnt der liebe Gott drinnen. Und das Kind gesagt, der liebe Gott wohnt im Himmel. Und dann das Kind sich selber die Erklärung gesagt, ah ja, jetzt verstehe ich, er wohnt im Himmel und das ist sein Geschäft. Ja, solche Geschichten haben wir dann immer gehört, nicht? Und das war immer sehr lustig. Nicht? Das hat die Friedel auch begeistert.
In Prague, Friedel opens a new chapter in her life. She is now 35 years old. She marries Pavel Brandeis, a Czech accountant. She teaches children to paint and again starts to paint for herself after having neglected it in Vienna because of the design studio. She moves away from the influence of the Bauhaus and the urge to be inventive. Her paintings are more realistic and more colorful.
She went way beyond it, but never lost, never discarded the valuable things. She rather imbued it with more passion and with her personality. She said she didn't know whether she was maybe just an inspired teacher or whether she was really an artist. That was a question to her. What was she? She knew she was an inspired teacher. So was she also an inspired artist in her own rights?
Was she?
Oh yes, she certainly was. Was highly gifted. It's a great loss to the world of art that she did not continue to do art. It would have gotten better and better, certainly.
She made so many things from balcons, so many things from windows. She wanted to make a border between her and life. But this reality that she didn't want to be involved just caught her every second.
There was a shortage of paper and pencils and everything, so she tried to use any possible piece of paper of any color and any shape, and so in this way very interesting, let's say, compositions really were born. Maybe it was a kind of modern art.
Friedel also teaches art history to the children of Terezin. For one exercise, she asks them to paint their own versions of a picture by the Dutch master, Vermeer. But she uses painting mainly as a therapeutic device. She encourages the children to express themselves in their painting, thus helping them to free their inner feelings and repressed anxieties, as well as get in touch with their dreams, memories, and hopes.
It was a time of big mess, and in big mess you have to find and to clarify simple things. I am a human being and I have a name, and that's why, for instance, she had a lot of lessons with making monograms. Then every child has to play with his own name.
That was one thing that was so interesting to me when the first pictures from Terezin came. I see how solid, how intact those children were, in spite of what happened to them. They were really keeping something alive that had been there. Even there's no butterfly in Terezin. There had been butterflies in their lives.
Excerpts from a lecture given by Friedel in 1943 to instructors of the children in Terezin.
If we want to analyze the drawings of the children and learn something from them, first and foremost, we must ignore our own expectations as adults about form and content. We must wait patiently for what the drawings themselves will tell us. Our expectations are usually a result of a false image we have of the child and what he has to say. I wonder why adults wish the children to take after them so quickly. Are we so pleased and happy with ourselves?
In 1938, Friedel gets a visa to Palestine. She is able to leave, but hesitates. What will happen to Pavel? Will it be possible to get him out as well? And who knows, maybe the situation is not that serious. Many people around her leave, and among them, her devoted pupil, Edith Kramer. But Friedel decides to stay. Together with Pavel, she moves to a small Czech village on the Polish border. It seems as though life is once again safe from the approaching storm.
Tadyhle tu alej ona malovala, víš?
Jakou alej?
No co tady jsou ty stromy dole.
Ano.
Kukečka.
Anna Sladkova is a painter who lived her entire life in the little town of Nachod. She and Friedel became friends when Friedel lived here from 1938 to 1942. Since that time, Anna carries the memories. Friedel brings to this remote little place distant and unknown fragrances. The Bauhaus, Vienna, Prague. Friedel and Pavel rent a flat opposite the railway station in a small village by the name of Honov.
Tak tady jistě hodně malovala na ty květiny, protože vzadu ty stromy tam mnohdy byly. Někdy to byla krajina, jak říkám, malovala ze všech místností. Vzpomínám si na jednu begonii, kterou tady asi v tomhletom osvětlení, že ty její chloupky prosvítaly, celá zářila.
Although her space is confined, her freedom limited, and the lack of necessities and painting utensils oppresses, Friedel paints a lot. Landscapes, allegorical paintings, portraits, and still life, mainly flowers. In this extreme black and white reality, Friedel paints in colors.
Dass dieser Krieg nicht so ausgehen wird, wie die Juden sich vorstellen, nämlich, dass die europäischen arischen Völker ausgerottet werden, sondern dass das Ergebnis dieses Krieges die Vernichtung des Judentums ist. Zum 1. Mai Zum 1. Mai werden nicht andere allein verbluten, sondern zum 1. Mal wird dieses Mal das echt altjüdische Gesetz angewendet, Aug um Aug, Zahn um Zahn.
She was pregnant with Paul, but she lost the baby. I mean, she miscarried. And she'd had, in her younger days, many abortions, and that didn't help.
Friedel life is very, very rich and meaningful, even if we will not go to these details of your privacy.
Why?
Why
not?
Why? Because I would not like that anybody, after I will die, will describe all my relation with people. From that point, why she made abortion, you know, why she didn't have children. I think that this is something also, maybe if she would have her own child, her life would be absolutely different. But her fate, her goral, her loss was to be with children that not her own.
This attic is the last place that Friedel and Pavel live in Honov.
Dear Hilde, For me, mercy of God is the ability to overcome fears and horrors without losing in the course of the event, when nothing is clear and distinct, the inner serenity of the soul. We can always give content and meaning to the form, no matter how harsh the form is. I came to the conclusion that it is better to be what we are, and not what we would have liked to be. This should be our aspiration. For myself, I tried to live the way I wanted it to be, but needless to say, it was not so successful. Do you remember my writing to you about self-perception? Well, I did not yet have the possibility to attain it, although it sounds so simple. As you can see, if I'm able to write with no restraint, it means that I'm still preoccupied with the same vital issues, so you shouldn't worry about me. 1,000 kisses, yours, Friedel.
Towards the end of December 1942, Friedel and Pavel receive an order to report to the local school in Hronov. Their names are on the list for the transport to Terezin. Once the news reaches Hilda in bombarded Hamburg, she obtains a permit for crossing the border. She arrives in Hronov and spends with Friedel and Pavel the last week before they are transported to Terezin.
Und es war ja vor Weihnachten. Ich habe gesagt, ich gehe dann zu Weihnachten nicht auf Urlaub und bin hingefahren. Nicht? Und da waren wir die ganze Woche noch zusammen. Ich habe die ganzen Vorbereitungen mitgemacht. Nicht? Wir haben x-mal die Pakete aufgemacht und wieder eingepackt. Und 60 Kilo waren ja zu tragen von jedem. Nicht wahr? Und ich bin am Abend weg zur Trude und um 4 Uhr in der Früh war ich da. Da lag die Friedel auf der Couch und da hat sie geweint. Da hat sie geweint. Und da habe ich, trösten kann man ja nicht in so einem Fall. Und da hat sie mir gesagt, ja, ich habe Angst, dass ich dich verliere. Mit den Bomben, nicht in Hamburg. Da hat sie hat Angst. Da habe ich gesagt, Gege, das ist doch jetzt wirklich lächerlich. Nicht? Ja, dass du mich Angst hast. Ich hab Angst um euch alle. Nicht? Und dann sind sie aufgestanden und wir sind in die Schule gegangen. Ja, das kann man nicht beschreiben. Ich kann es nicht, das ist ja alles da drinnen, das ist furchtbar. Nicht, das kann man nicht beschreiben. Das kann man nicht beschreiben.
This is a flag of our room 28, and we cut it into 4 quarters. And when everybody went already to the east, to Auschwitz, so we cut the flag into 4 pieces, and we said when we come back, we will put it together. But we have only 1 quarter. That's all what we have.
She did a wonderful thing and probably helped those children, you know, to grow, to develop, to mature, to remain themselves during this short time that they had until they were going to die, to be alive until the day of their death, instead of slowly, you know, disintegrating.
This is Friedel's last painting. It was painted a short while before her name was included on the transport list. Somebody had apparently asked her to demonstrate how to paint a young girl's eyes.